Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is one of my dear brothers and friends, Eddy Martin Graham. Eddy is a best-selling author of the book Children of the New Earth. He's an event manager of Victoria Conservatory of Music. He's a co-founder of the West Coast Bathhouse. He's an educator of children and an amazing artist. Eddy, it's such an honor to have you on.
Oh, thanks, brother. Yeah, it means a lot to be here, and I missed you, man. Yeah, love you lots. So this is
Yeah,
awesome.
man. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked to have you on. This has been such a journey together. Eddy and
Mhm.
I co-founded a men's group called the Brothers of Light,
Yeah.
and that will no longer exists, but
Mhm.
we stewarded that for like 3 years.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, 3 years.
during
Yeah, that was a
yeah.
mission.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Wow.
during the peak of some of the most chaotic times on the planet and during
Yeah.
COVID, and we were
Yeah.
meeting every Monday on Zoom
Every week.
supporting the men. So it
Yeah.
was and we had several retreats around the country, and
Yeah.
Eddie's calling in from Vancouver Island, right?
Yeah, from Canada. So for
Yeah.
me to hop over do some retreats in the US during such a wild time was epic. It felt like warrior activation to the max, you know? So yeah, it was
Oh
a deep
yeah.
honor. That's for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, we had all these conversations about like how am I gonna get to the airport? Like, what's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen? I don't even know
Am I
if I'm
gonna
gonna get
make it? Yeah.
stuck in America, you know?
Crazy times, man. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
dude. Yeah, I was like, man, you can just stay with me, you know?
Yeah.
That was what we kind of agreed upon, but it spirit was
Hmm.
guiding us and the whole time, and
Hmm.
yeah, it really opened up so much, and a lot of men really reflected how those experiences really impacted them and continue to. So,
They do. Often they still reach out to me and we have like, once you have that connection with a brother, it's lifelong, it's
mhm,
beautiful. Like we go do our things, but it's always there and the heart is always connected. And, especially during that time in history, it was so important to have that grounding and have
mhm,
that connection, like
mhm.
something to tether to that had routine, that had openness about our feelings. Like not everybody on the planet had that. So I just feel like it was a crucial thing that we did, and I'm really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, man, for me it was really important for my well-being, my mental health, like knowing
Yes.
that every week I could come and be with in a safe container with men that really saw me and really felt my heart and were really able to support in whatever way they could. And man, it
Yeah.
was so cool. We had guys coming on from all over the world. I
All
think
over
we
the
had guys
planet.
from Australia and England and all
It was
over.
organic.
Yeah.
It was just naturally keep developing, and I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then we went to Mexico to Tulum together, and
Yeah, we did.
we yeah
Yeah.
we did some work some grid
Chichen
work
Itza. Yeah.
grid work in Chichen Itza,
Yeah, that's powerful.
which was really powerful. And for the first time in 3 years, we the Quetzalcoatl,
Yeah.
the winged serpent, appeared on the side of the main temple there,
What a gift. Yeah. That was
and that was like confirmation from spirit that our work was
Mhm.
completed there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
really cool. Same thing, really organic. Like a lot of people joined us,
Mhm.
and the right people. I think we had a breatharian with us.
Yeah, this was surreal. So we had a fellow that was a breatharian, so didn't eat any food. I don't believe maybe had water. I don't know. It was really fascinating for years. And I've always wanted to meet someone like that because, the range of human potential, especially when you believe like it is unreal. So it was quite cool to see such an unbelievable person in the midst of us. It was really special. Yeah. That was
Yeah,
cool.
he's the first and only breatharian that I've met so far.
Yeah, same. So,
So, yeah, that was far out, man, and
yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and what I like to start the podcast with is hearing about your awakening journey, if you'd be
Yeah.
open to sharing that.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, hey, it's a lifelong experience here, but it's yeah, there's definitely key moments where there is a big catalyst of expansion and consciousness. And for me, I remember distinct moments. And so growing up, I was very much encouraged to be creative, which is really amazing. I had a father who was deep in the improv, theater, expressive arts world, and I had a mother who is makeup artist in Warner Brothers and working with all these like famous, it was really they were really activated people. And
Hmm.
so I'm created, cool, great. I created this opportunity to create a lot. So that was really awesome. So of course, for my experience, creating art and dancing and costume at such a young age, which we all really love to do at a young age, but being able to have such range and no judgment was just really freeing for my consciousness. And obviously, family dynamics can be kind of tough sometimes, and sometimes my parents were going through life and creativity was a salve to that, and it was allowing me to really go deeper into how I was processing these experiences. And so I remember distinctly when I was 7 years old, I had a really profoundly deep moment with myself. And I was like, yo, like, I know this is going to be a wildlife. Like, I could just already feel it
Uh-huh.
in, and it's going to get really awesome. So just know that no matter what, do not lose your light. Like,
Mm.
do not like just focus on that point, like that chief aim, like do not. And so I was like, okay. And kind of, having that higher self like moment with myself, being like, okay, like I don't really know. I'm just a child.
Hmm.
But of course, holding that intention throughout the years was so crucial because life did get more intense and louder. And, like my mother went through deep addiction and like things like that started to happen. And it was like, okay, I need to have that remembrance, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And so throughout that experience, going into university, going deeper into art school, just going way more into my depth of artistry and what it means to be human, alive, a being on this planet at all. And of course, the family dynamics that were really harsh and intense at that time. Yeah, really, really were like the push that, I'm actually very grateful for because the deeper that for me, it was like the deeper that I felt such pain and such sadness and such grief, it was a springboard to even more like, wow, this life, and rapture and awe,
Hmm.
which was available because of my courage and ability to just lean into the grief and go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper without distinctly staying there because my core intention of keeping your light was still there. So I
Hmm.
was able to kind of like a free diver, like go deep, but still be tethered and be like, okay, and then come back up. So
Dude,
I always
that's so
had trust.
interesting you mentioned that because the
Yeah.
previous podcast what
Yeah.
that is going to be released right before yours
Yeah.
is with a free diver. He's a world record
Oh,
holder.
no way.
Yeah.
Huh. I
Yeah.
must have felt that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, it's kind of a cool metaphor because it's like, okay, like even the free diver is still connected to the top.
Hmm.
He's able to go back to the light if need be. I
Hmm.
mean, that's the goal, but still be able to traverse. And as a very deep Piscean man, I love to be able to go into the deep waters. So yeah, that was always a crucial piece. And obviously, relationships really catalyze a lot of intensity and shake it up. And so, yeah, I went through a lot of intensity, a lot of pain for quite a few years. Just kind of traversing family relationship, really going back to the who am I question and just like returning back and, always knowing that this art, this expression is allowing me to discover that in deeper ways than I ever thought was possible. And so I just kind of met myself there. I was like, okay, like I'm on a journey. It's okay. And even just being in that was really, really powerful and beautiful. So over the last decade after that, like throughout my 20s, I'm like right at the end of that now of my 20s. I'm just like, wow, what a journey of really choosing love over and over and not letting the fear win but respecting that it's a part of the journey, and really having deep gratitude for those in my tribe. Like my soon to be wife, like she's like, her and I go so deep into our expression and our love because of that deep safety, like that deep sense of like, whoa, is like right there. And we both have that core intention to keep expanding, keep growing. And, that's been a big part of my awakening is a woman that I can like mirror with, that's been like, as we know, relationships, boom, you see yourself in the other so deep.
Hmm.
And so for Ella and I, it's been unbelievable the ability to meet each other, overcome obstacles and uncomfortable aspects, and be like, I love you regardless, and let's just keep going and keep improving and keep growing. It's been beautiful. So big hats off to the feminine in my life for always being such a big catalyst. And yeah, the men in my life, like you too, is just, yeah, been incredible, just been present with me. And lately more than ever, it's been a lot of boxing and sword fighting and
Mm.
a lot of wrestling, a lot of fighting, a lot of things like that, just to meet my edge.
Hmm.
Crucial piece for my consciousness. Because when I was growing up, it was really in the feminine because I
Hmm.
was just so visionary, so out there, and it was really awesome and very ecstatic.
Hmm.
But now it's like, let's ground it down and let's make it practical and let's actually like build and, let's feel the body. Like, the men are all about like meeting the body and it's really powerful. So yeah, I feel like coming into that sense of balance with myself now. The pendulum has swung quite a bit, and now
Right.
it's like cool. I feel like a really good equilibrium now, and it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. So
Yeah,
yeah.
man. I mean, I'm right there with you, brother, for
Mm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, part of my journey personally was having to accept and not have any shame around the feminine side of myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then by accepting that, it
Mm-hmm.
actually opened the door to explore the masculine side of myself without
Yeah.
any judgment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
without like, oh, I'm gonna be like that man there. I don't want to be like that. It's like, no, I'm just gonna create my own version of masculinity
Exactly.
and then integrate that. And it's a constant
Totally.
evolution, right?
Yeah.
And
Totally.
it's beautiful. It's like being able to be curious about it and
Mm.
evolve with it, and then also bringing in that inner child aspect, right? Which I
Yeah.
think
All
you
about.
you so eloquently have been
Yeah.
able to keep so alive inside yourself, and that's
Totally.
why you do so well with children and with animals. They really feel your energy,
Amazing,
and
man.
I think that one of the most interesting aspects about you is that you never really had it's from what you've shared with me in the past is like you never really had a period of your life where you really like fell asleep, quote unquote, right? You've been kind
Yeah.
of going through the journey from
Yeah.
childhood, right?
Actually, it's funny you say that because my buddy Steven laughs all the time. He's like, we're over here going through all these like ayahuasca ceremonies and it's just grueling, it's intense. And there's Eddie over here awake at day one, like, you
Right,
know,
right, right.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean
I always laugh at
it's
that.
super interesting and it's such a blessing that you
Yeah.
had such supportive parents
Yeah.
and
Huge.
and there was a choice made by your soul, right,
Hmm.
to stay awake through your teenage years, through
Yeah.
your 20s,
Painful in many ways. Yeah.
yeah, because for me personally, I
Hmm.
remember distinctly I was having all these spirits
Hmm.
and energies trying to mess with me when I was
Hmm.
like 11 years old, sixth, seventh
Yeah.
grade, right?
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
remember what around that time the Sixth Sense movie came out.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
I was like so terrified of that movie because
Right.
that was actually happening to me. And I was like, "Oh my God." I remember I didn't sleep in my bed for like I don't know, almost a year. I
Oh,
would like set up a little cot next to my parents, and I remember feeling like I don't want to experience this right now. There was
yeah.
nobody there to explain what was going on for me. There was
Mm.
no shamans, there was no spiritual teachers.
Right.
None of
Yeah.
that was available to me, you know? And my parents was just kind of like, just pretend it doesn't exist, almost like energy, right? And I was like,
Right.
well, I'm having these dreams. I'm waking up and hearing knocking on the other side of my attic. Like, I
Yeah.
can't,
No doubt.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be, I don't want to be in this aware of all this, you know? And so
Mm.
I remember there was a moment where I was like, just turn it all off. Like I don't want to be feeling all this, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
chose to quote unquote fall asleep, right?
Right.
And so part of me recognizes now, looking back at it, like I
Mm.
needed these experiences of like going out in college and drinking and
Yep.
being immersed in the quote unquote matrix, right?
Yep.
So that
Mhm.
I could relate to those people and actually be like, okay,
Relief.
I see where
Yeah.
you're at.
Exactly.
I've been there, and
Hmm.
now here's what I did to get out of it and to work through it, you know?
Mm.
And and then there's people like yourself who are just like teachers and here to shine that light, to hold through it no matter what. And
Hmm.
both are really important, you
They
know?
are. They really are. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's a really important piece, and a big part of the majority have that experience. And so it's quite rare to have support when these gifts are coming online, and it's just from my experience guiding children, it's like most children are experiencing a lot of this, right? But
Hmm.
it's like, are they being met with, okay, yeah, like that's your experience, and like allowing them to have that, or are they being shut down about it? Are they being told that's not real, and then therefore it just completely like cuts it off, or things like that. And so it's really special just to give a moment of presence to the child and just be like, okay, like, yeah, okay, I feel you, no matter what. Like just allow them to have that experience. And we actually did lots of psychic protection conversations in our nature school. And
Mm.
would go deep into that. And then also honoring like every single child that I spoke to an angel. Like that was normal, So it's like
Okay.
we have support, And so it's too bad when I hear the stories of like so much like, oh no, but it's like you're powerful and you do have support. And so it's like if you all of us were told that when we were younger, it'd be a lot better, And we feel like, okay, I can be with this, like this is a powerful, beautiful thing. And to see all these different children, all different ages in our classroom, confirm that this is their experience, see that with each other, and then enhance their light because of that, and then also create art about it or do psychic games about it, or, and have a safe container about that is unbelievable. It actually brought me to tears like every single time. I was just like, I'd have to like leave the classroom and just be like, oh, like, are you kidding me? And just also grief because hasn't received this yet. This isn't normal yet, but it will be eventually. And I'm grateful for that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that what the type of school that you work at is so crucial for these kids that are coming onto the
absolutely.
planet and are on the planet because they're already activated with so much of this
Especially now. Yeah.
advanced capabilities and gifts that, people in my generation
Mhm.
we're just remembering those things, but these kids already have it coming in, right?
Yeah.
And it's you know,
Mhm.
working with these kids, I work with a lot of kids with
Mhm.
autism, with Down
Yeah.
syndrome, with different types of aspects
Hmm.
of themselves, right? That they're so tapped in, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have any way to understand it or to like expand it or work on it.
Mhm.
And I've told some of my kids' parents that there are these schools available that would really help your kid advance and really like you said like shine their light and know that they're not just imagining things and that this is actually a real experience for them. And yeah, so on that topic, what are some of the schools and what is the name of your school and what are some of the other schools that you know of that offer these types of opportunities for these kids?
Cool. Thanks for asking. Well, we called our school the North Learning Pod. It's quite simple.
Okay.
It was based in in Duncan, BC. It's still going. And we took over an old air cadet school, which is kind of like old military
Okay.
school, and we
Cool.
just
Cool.
reclaimed it. There was you guys would probably laugh about this. There was a big, it was really old school. Like you walk in there, it's like old school, like old world vibe. There was like a big picture of a painting of the Queen, which we
Oh,
like
wow.
covered with the tapestry. You know what I mean? We're just like, whoa, we're going
Yeah.
on into a new world here. But it was cool. Like it was really nice to have a giant field, classrooms, cafeteria. Like it was like a school, and like
Mhm.
to have what we're bringing to the table be in that atmosphere was really, really amazing. It felt like I was going into my old school and like reclaiming. It was really this beautiful energy, and we completely redid the whole school. Obviously, we put tapestries everywhere. We started having like little local craft fairs where everybody was selling and making herbs and tinctures, and we had the community come in a lot, which is really nice. So they felt involved, and we made the classroom into like this oasis lounge instead of it being all like militant, sitting in your desk, don't
Mm.
look around, sit still, don't get up. Like it was very like, okay, like if you need to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you need, like it was very honoring of our experience. Whereas the old paradigm, and you know what, to be honest, like I'm grateful for the, you know, the structure of the education system because it got us to where we are now. I'm always about that. I'm like, I'm grateful for the systems that have got us here,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
let's like relook at this and keep expanding. You know, I'm
Mhm.
not here to be
Right.
like, oh, that's horrible. It's like it got us here. So to be in this beautiful epic opportunity was unreal because we get to go down to it was beautiful. Like we're on Vancouver Island. There's like tons of like rivers and brooks and places to explore. And because it's a nature school, we could just walk right across the field and go down and explore this forest. And so this
Wow.
forest was very special. I mean, going there day after day, it created this like insane energy because obviously nature is alive, it's vibrant, it's feeling us, and it knows our intention. So when we're
Mhm.
walking in there, like animals are coming up to us, like, you know, it's like something out of Fern Gully or like something surreal, like a movie, right? But that's what
Wow.
happens when you're coming in such a benevolent energy. And, you know, obviously I invited in all the mothers to be a part of that, all the fathers if they could, like be with us.
Mhm.
Because that was the saddest piece for me was so you're dropping off your child to me, and these are the most formative years of your child, and you have to go because of, you know, economy and you can't enjoy it. And so as much as that could happen, I was like, please be a part of this. Like come up to the board and, you know, talk about something inspiring. We would bring in guest teachers who are sound healers. We bring in,
Mm.
you know, we would bring in many different guests. And I really wanted the children to understand that you are your own best teacher. Like you are the guide, you, not me. Like I'm here to create a safe space, but we're all teachers, you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
so it was really cool. And I would just offer the opportunity for children to speak and do whatever they wish. And the transmissions that would come in because of that were like striking. Like I didn't even know, like the days felt like years because it was just so deep.
Wow.
And I'm really honored about that. And there's definitely more of these pods popping up now.
Mhm.
The west coast of Canada, just like the west coast of America, is very fruitful in these sorts of ideas, which is really
Mhm.
nice.
Mhm.
And I could only hope that it just keeps expanding. And the more that I get to know more people that are kind of in this experimentary sort of educational experience, the more I hear people are daring to do it. And if they hear that, you know, it's possible, they're more willing to try. And the coolest part was that, you know, our school is government funded partially, which is unreal.
Awesome.
And the rest of it is like co-supported by extra money from the community.
Mhm.
But basically, the government was like, "Hey, this is curriculum. So do curriculum. So yeah, like we would still do curriculum, but then we go way beyond that. Or
Right.
we go do math, but it would be like sacred mathematics and it would just go boom,
Ah.
whole different ballgame. So I'd spin it into a different way where it actually helps support and grow their consciousness versus just stay very, very left-brained. It was all about creating the balance of the
Hmm.
hemispheres. So
Hmm.
like we bring in some piano while we're talking about math to like infuse. Like there's all these different kind of polymath, Leonardo da Vinci style ways of really, and that's really why I started working at the Conservatory of Music because I was like, well, I believe in music. We're all musical instruments. Our body is an instrument. Frequency is, yeah, just a dance of light and vibration, and so is an instrument. So let's do that. So it's really cool how my path has really expanded from education also into music, also into wellness entertainment and saunas and dance. And it's just like this really beautiful mix of just healthy, exuberance and aliveness, which is really fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's all connected. It's definitely all connected. And I think all of it's super important, you know? Uh, and going back to the question a little bit, what other schools do you know? I know Montessori is kind of a bridge
Yeah.
school, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's good that you asked that. So there are many different types, and so for me, I've worked in basically all of them. I've decided to explore them on purpose, just to see what's up. And I actually grew up for a few years at least in Montessori,
Oh, okay.
outside of the school system. Like, so that's I already had that basics, foundation in myself when I was younger, which was all about Montessori, which was created by a woman named Montessori. That was her last name, and she was Italian. And this whole movement was actually a movement to fight fascism. That was actually
Mm,
the point in World War II
I didn't know
because
that. Okay.
oh yeah, it's really, really surreal how deep this stuff goes, like politically, emotionally, societally, like things like that.
Hmm.
When there's oppression and totalitarianism, there's going to be an opposite effect
Hmm.
where they're like, no, if you're going to try to
No,
control
thank
us,
you. Yeah.
no thanks. I don't really like that. We're gonna we're gonna go into hyper trusting, inner guidance like the whole way. So Montessori is really about trusting yourself. What do you wish to do? Child-led type of education, which is really, I know, more and more the future as we become more and more accepting that we are our own teachers. And then Waldorf has been around for quite a few decades, and that one's really cool because it's a mixture of like group experience, like group education, and child-led. So it's kind of like a
Okay.
combo, and there's lots of
Okay.
projects, there's lots of improv, there's lots of dance, like there's lots of group, and then you go out and do your own thing. And I like that combo. I think that's nice.
Hmm.
And then there's Reggio, which I personally love like so much, especially I've worked in daycares quite a bit.
Hmm.
My primary like ages that I've worked with the most are 2 to 5.
Okay.
And honestly, like they're so cool. They're so
They're
cool
so
because
they're such a cool age.
right? Like they're just so activated. It's hilarious. And they're able to really verbalize with you at that age and they can run around and they're not like bombarded by all this ego stuff. Like they're just open.
Right.
It's
And
really
they're
cool.
doing that they're such great teachers of presence,
Yeah, well, yeah,
because they
present.
they don't care. A lot of times they don't care. Like they're just gonna do what they want to do, and
Yeah, yeah,
they're just
exactly.
gonna like, okay, I
Yeah,
want to do this now. Okay, now I want to do that. And it's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
want to focus on that, and then maybe they're over it in a couple of seconds, or
yeah.
maybe they're
And that's
hyper
okay.
focused on it. Yeah, like it's
Totally. Or you're having like a great convo and they're like, "Okay, bye." And you're like, okay,
yeah,
like that's happening. That's cool. And just
yeah.
being adaptable to what the moment needs and what you need, it's really taught me that. I'm like, wow, you're really honoring of yourself. Like, whatever, you're not just forcing the convo, you're just doing whatever you want. And so Reggio is perfect for that age because Reggio is very there's no brands. It's very like tactile, sensory based
Okay.
learning because at those ages, you're not going into the higher models of education and writing or anything quite yet, like a little bit, but it's really about these like games and like fluffy balls and like cool shaped like carvings and like all these and textures and fabrics and things just strung around the room, and you
Uh-huh.
just put them there and you just watch. And basically
Mm.
there's this motor skill, sharing, like there's all these like sort of things that start to naturally occur
Hmm.
when you don't really say, hey, this is what you do with this. It's like you
Right.
just let them do it, is really freeing. And the imagination that can go into these items, it's like unbelievable because their consciousness, their ability to see and feel is so broad. And so they'll just keep playing and playing and playing and playing. And I've gone into the deepest, I've gone deeper into like play with the kids than I ever almost did. It feels like when I was a kid, it seems like I'm able to go so with them.
Hmm.
And to a point where it's interesting as a teacher because you have to you're with them, but you're also tethered to time
Hmm.
and navigating the flow of the day. Because if you go too deep into play, you forget, and then
Oh
you gotta
yeah.
keep it back. It's like, okay, now it's snack time, because otherwise I was like, wow, I could do this all day. This is the
Right.
best.
Easily, easily. So
Right?
with Reggio, is it
Yeah.
only up to age 5 or does it keep going?
Not necessarily. It's interesting. There's Reggio inspired. So it's like
Okay.
Reggio inspired art installations. There's Reggio inspired book, writings. Like there's different thing, music inspired. So there's ways that it's expanded beyond preschool specifically. It's just that for the type of age group, Reggio is the most fruitful. And honestly, in my personal experience and opinion, it has been the most beautiful and impactful, especially for children with autism
Mm.
and those who are, you know, a little delayed in speech. It's like the best for being able to like feel and connect with themselves and their environment in a way that isn't just purely verbal, um, and allows them, yeah, to process things on a deeper level
Hmm.
for long, which is really fun. So,
Yeah, well, it brings up this idea of how a lot of people that are on the spiritual path
mhm.
and expanding their consciousness, a lot of the people that I've met are very neurodivergent.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
And
big.
and there a lot of them are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a correlation there. I'm still exploring this, right? But it's like it seems as though when people are just a little bit more open naturally in a way, like more energetically sensitive or more um like connected to the earth, like those are sometimes perceived as on the spectrum or autistic, right?
Yeah.
Or like they have these other abilities more developed, like they're more telepathic, they're more
Yeah.
sensory, right? Like they can feel more in their bodies, in their energetic fields, right?
Yeah.
I'm just really curious about that lately, like how that all
Hmm.
correlates
Yeah.
um and what that, like it seems as though it's almost a superpower for these kids, you know?
It is. It is if they're honored in that. I
Right.
think it's quite easy. It's the saddest thing in the world when you see a child who feels outcasted because of being different. I mean, I personally experienced, we have all experienced a piece of that just because we're very open people and sensitive people.
Hmm.
Or I was always the child who, if somebody was hurt on the playground, I'd be like right there with them.
Hmm.
And so it's either or, it's like, or all of it. But yeah, it's wild. These children are becoming more and more aware and more sensitive as they come down and as the frequency of the planet keeps raising. And I'm really glad that everyone is, whether they are conscious distinctly or not, it's happening. And the solar flares and things are really popping off on this planet
Hmm.
every day, more and more. And so these children are yeah, they're just like, wow, they're just so open. And it's I feel it feels sad to me. I really wish that they were in some sort of nature school, all of them, because for a child that open and that expressive, and to be in this like little concrete shoebox, being told that this is how you have to do it, is like disorientating, and they get pills shoved down their throat, and it breaks my heart. And I know that things are shifting, and the big part of why I even went into the education system was to, you know, because at the beginning I was in the normal mainstream world of it, and
Hmm.
I would just be like a pillar of support, because I was like, I see what's going on, guys,
Hmm.
and this isn't good,
Right.
but here, and let's do this together. And then finally it kept going into, okay, now we have like a freedom style school. But
Well,
yeah, I just,
yeah, it brings up this study that I remember reading about
yeah,
where these no, normally boys were like the ones that were like lashing out and kind of like being wild, right, and reckless in the classroom. When they put
yeah,
them into nature, they were the leaders. They were the ones that
dang,
were like
yeah,
organizing everything and
yeah,
basically like the alphas, right?
yeah,
And it was
yeah.
really interesting to hear about that because it made total sense, right? Like you have these little boys that are just trying to like connect
Yeah.
to the earth and like just express, but also like don't know what to do with their energy. I feel like I was kind of like that as a kid, you
Yeah,
know?
same.
I just
Many
like
boys, most boys, honestly, from
yeah.
what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah,
They,
and they just want to like run and jump and be free, but then they're like stuck in this classroom, and then they're if they don't listen, it's like okay, take your Adderall or whatever they're prescribing, and it's like,
I saw that firsthand, man. Like I remember walking right into like, yeah, just like the normal school system way of doing it. Just the only way that I got into the whole thing is that intro, and so that's just how you do it. And when I got there, I was like, "Whoa, this is really not good." Like it's like you mentioned, it's like really important to see the whole spectrum of how something is done in order for you to want to shift it or change it. It was a catalyst for me, so I'm really grateful. But these boys, mostly boys, were just like demonized, like they were being like told that they were this, they were that, and you're programming that boy every single time you do that, and all of a sudden they start to believe it, and they start to spiral, because that much energy with being told that you're not good or you're bad creates chaos, right?
mhm,
Obviously. So I would, whenever that would start to happen, even just a little bit, I would be like, okay, you're like, you have lots of energy. Okay, cool. Let's go outside right now. And so we
right.
just, and I'd be like, here's a ball and
Uh-huh.
throw, like,
Uh-huh.
let's go. And then by the end of it, they're like, Eddie, like they're doing great. Like they're just like reading with everybody now, and they're just like chilling. It's like, yeah. And it's like right in front of us. Like boys are physical. They need to move. They need to like test their limits. They need to be allowed space, instead of just being told to just shut up and sit down. And obviously you're going to go crazy, whereas for girls, like, it's just a little bit easier. Obviously everybody's like different, and there are girls that need a lot of physical as well, but just in general, statistically, like they're more cool with just like reading a book, and doing a little dance and connecting with their little, like, their group of girls. Whereas
Mhm.
boys are like, they're very individual, and they're really trying to find their way, and they're testing, and they're kind of, and we really need to allow them space, because as we know, being with talking to lots of men, how that can grow and evolve is a lot of confusion, like a lot of pain that's been held on for a long time, and can be projected out onto family, which is not cool. So
Well,
yeah,
onto everything, right? Onto the
yeah,
world, onto relationships,
business,
onto friends. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
That energy has to go somewhere, and if it's not processed the right way, it has a possibility of going towards the more toxic side of things. And what you were mentioning earlier when you were sharing in the beginning about how now you've expanded into more of those physical aspects of the masculine, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you mentioned how it's the edge, right? And in
mm,
men's work, we do what's called leaning into your edge, right?
yeah,
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, as we were expressing before, even before we started press recording, I've been really going more into, yeah, just like really meeting my edge with my consciousness and my physicality together.
Hmm.
And, things like sword fighting, because my friend Steven, he's been taught by one of the top grandmasters in the planet for
Wow.
sword fighting. He's been gifted that. And so, learning from him is like unreal because it's really about following through with your intention. It's about being slower. It's not like I'm also doing boxing, but it's like it's a different energy because you're more methodical. It's about the footwork and it's about carrying through and
Mm,
about from this moment, I'm going to commit to cutting through and getting to the other side, no
mm,
matter what, even if I die. And
hmm.
so it's this like holding that piercing edge. And that's a really distinctly masculine energy right there, that single point focus, that dedication, that integrity of that intention and carrying through with the least amount of hits in the most dedicated, consistent, confident fall through. And I've
Mm.
carried that through with my business and with my dedication to deep conversation with others or relationship stuff. It's that the intention is everything. And if you
Laser,
waver,
laser point focus.
sorry?
Laser point focus, it sounds like,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, and like it's okay to be adaptable if things need to shift. Like that's also really epic, but really carrying through on that dedication and being able to be physical with that for me has been a great edge because I never grew up with that. I didn't grow up with a guy's guy dad per se,
Mhm.
So for me to be like, yeah, I want to like brawl in the mud and I want to like box and I want to lift a ton of weights and I want to just go a little crazy and primal was insanely important for me and it's been extremely grounding. And so ability to yeah, to really dream and be a visionary is crucial, but also the ability to be like, okay, consistency, routine, dedication is also really crucial. And that involves the physical expression of being a man with that. So it's been cool. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many ways to express that physicality as a man. The other 2 days ago, I went and helped chop wood, and
Yeah,
I
it's a good one.
mean, these are
Yeah.
huge logs,
Nice.
like probably 3 feet across,
Yeah. Cool.
and or more, maybe like yeah, like huge, massive, right? And it's like there's this at first when I was starting, I was just refining the technique of like getting not
Exactly.
overusing my muscles, right? Like so that I'd be
Yes.
extremely fatigued, but like
Yeah.
actually using the axe
Hmm.
to use its momentum to help. And there's
Exactly.
metaphors in all this, right?
Yeah.
And instead of like using brute force, like actually using this tool and
Hmm.
guiding it and not having to overpower it, right? And that's right. So it's really interesting. And then when I started to find that balance, then the axe would just swing on its own, and I would just move through the wood like it was
Lies.
just like butter, eventually towards the end, not in the beginning, but I had to
Yeah.
refine it.
Yeah.
And it was just so there's this testosterone release and
Hmm.
this primal, like, I did this thing, like I did this thing right here and I worked until I got this thing done. There's like something
Hmm.
in that in the masculine energy that is, yeah, it's really powerful, and it just um it really sparks something more primal inside. And also, like, there's layers to it, right? There's layers to the discipline, there's layers to um the physicality, there's layers of like making sure you don't get hurt while you're doing these things, and like taking moments of like am I truly present here? Am
Mhm.
I breathing with this, right? Like, or am I just like trying to plow through, and it's
Yeah, it's so symbolic and it shows up in our lives, you know? So if we can be in that boxing ring or whatever, we're just facing off with ourselves and we're being like, okay, like, where am I resisting my power in my day to day? Like, where am I limiting myself? You know, where am I shortening my breath, which is my life force? Like, how am I, it's all there.
Mhm.
And so that like, oh, do I want to tap out or why? Or like, oh, okay, I do want to keep going in. I can't, all these is really beautiful and it's universal. It's good for all of us as humans, but there is something really powerful for men in that, in our direction, in our leadership, in the way that we just show up. I think like moving our bodies like that, it just like we show up bigger and prouder and more confident. We're able to feel the scope of what the moment needs, and we're able to lead it with decisiveness, and that's really good. And the world needs more of that,
Oh
So
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Good time.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And I think I think that, with the men's work that we did together, there
Mhm.
there was it was a lot of there was a lot of allowing men to feel, right?
Yes.
Because that was and continues to be repressed, right? Like men there's even songs about it, like "Man, don't cry," like
It's still there.
men, yeah, like it's very deeply rooted into today's world, right? Of like men need to be tough, they need to be these providers, protectors, which there's a lot of truth in all that. But then
Yep.
it also needs a balance. You have to have the ability to feel,
Mhm.
and if you don't have the ability to feel, you can't be a good space holder.
No, that's the thing. It's
Right,
interesting that you say that because it's like I understand from like a firefighter cop perspective, very masculine careers, mostly majority statistically men. It's like it's because they have to have real control over their emotions. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't feel, but there definitely is they could compartmentalize feeling, and I feel like if you do that enough, it could become chronic or it could become like you just can't access because you just have to shut it off in order to get the job done. And
right,
thank God we have those people because, hey, emergencies. I have a friend that's a paramedic and you just got to like do it, like look at what's in front of you. But, also on the other side, if you're all feeling, you're unstable and you're not able to direct something or help support something, or you're just like you're unpredictable
you're
and you
overwhelmed
can't.
with emotion. Yeah,
Yeah. So the balance, that's an art form, man. That's like everybody's different in that, but I think that's like really the goal. And I agree, like just getting men to just express authentically and feel, and especially during COVID times, was edgy for many men. And it was like to watch other men do that was a permission slip though, and it just kept it going. I think that was really the best piece was like, oh, like I'm not alone in that. And oh, that's a really cool way to think about that. And I'll take what resonates and leave the rest. And I didn't die.
right,
Okay. We made it to the end. Okay. And then it just
right.
kind of keeps going. And it's cool to see each other in this like our little boys can show up and be like, whoa, this is tender, Or a man's feeling a lot and we're like, whoa, okay. And like we don't need to like tell him to stop. We could just let it be and also honor the space enough to be like, hey, like, do you need some time? Like, do you need some space to like go into the room and just like feel and come back? Or like, are you good right now? And checking in was really honoring. And yeah, reflect on that, how crucial that was. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I live in Las Vegas now, and we started a group out here called the Drum of the Dragons, and it's been really powerful because uh taking what I've learned with the Brothers of Light and
Yeah.
with some of the other groups and all the different teachers of men's work that I've taught, learned from, it just I'm taking different pieces and just looking at it with exploration and seeing
Yes.
what the men need in each of the circles, right? And also bringing in those really crucial aspects like sweat lodge, for example, where, men get together, we're just with men, and we get to go into the space that's extremely uncomfortable because of the heat and because of this, these stressors, right? And these stressors can be created in so many different ways, right? Like Kundalini yoga is another great example of that, where you're creating these ways to stress the body, but then what it does is it prepares us for those moments in life when it can get really hectic, and then we get to navigate and go into that meditative state and be like, okay, uh,
Mhm.
that happened, but I'm okay. I'm safe
Awesome.
no matter
Yeah.
what,
So cool. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that, together we created a lot of those types of experiences for men, and I think there's like micro creations of this all the time. Like you're doing that for your fiance, I'm doing that for my girlfriend.
Carries on and on and on and on into everything.
Yeah, it's just like
Yes. Yeah.
it's a training ground for the rest of life because we're constantly called forward to hold space,
Yeah.
as as we evolve, the more we evolve, the larger of a container we can hold, the
Yeah.
more can be
More love.
happening inside that container, right?
Yeah.
And we can hold it without trying to shift anything. Just like, okay, here's what's
Mhm.
happening. All of it's okay, and it's temporary,
Really glad you said that, man. It's like, men, we often have the tendency, at least I do often, just to like want to try to fix it, And but hey, sometimes things just don't want to be fixed. They just want to be felt. And that was a big piece, especially for my relationship. It's like either it's like, whoa, whoa, there's a lot of feeling going on. Maybe it's about me. I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes. What am I walking into? And either you want to like go or you want to be like, okay, let's quickly fix that. But it's not like that. The human being is very complex and there's lots of layers, and often it's just being met with just compassion and deep care. And I think that being in the container with you with the men, being with children while they're like spiraling, has taught me so much
Oh my
about
God.
relationship, right? So it
Yeah.
all ties in into this sense of like, wow, like whatever is feeling like so much for us just needs either for our own selves or a partner who's able to just be in that masculine sort of energy to just be like that stability, that sense of like, you're good, I'm with you. And I'm not here to change that distinctly. I'm not here to like tell you otherwise. And then from there, now that we've met each other on that sense of like, okay, then we could go deeper. And these are the tools that I've gained so much, specifically from Brothers of Light and things like that. It's been amazing. So
Yeah, man.
yeah.
I'm right there with you. And that brings up the question. So let's say, you know, let's use the example of the kids for now, right?
Sure.
Like this kid is having a meltdown in some regard. Like they just want this one toy and
Okay.
they can't have it, right? So how would you what tools or what would you do to help that individual in the moment?
Cool. Well, for me, I already have usually I'd have like a backstory on the history and the patterns of the child in
Mhm.
relationship to this sort of dynamic, because this likely has happened before and happens, whether it's in the classroom, going to outside, drop off, pick up, like these sort of things I'm constantly navigating and watching with
Hmm.
curiosity, no judgment, just like observing how things are navigating in the room. We're in an environment where it's ripe for all of it to come up, whether the yeah to the whoa, and full expression because they're young. So that's totally okay. And the fact that they know that I'm like, that's cool makes them relax. So
Mm.
just by being in that state, like when you walk into a room and you're like, I accept it for all that it is, and I'm also going to be right there for when it just is feeling distorted and we're going to navigate it, immediately relaxes the possibility of it. But it happens. And so if a child is like, I really want that, usually it's like somebody took it, or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Usually that kind of thing could happen. And usually that's a communication lapse. And so it depends also, of course, on the age of the individual and where they're at in their journey of
Hmm.
like communication. Usually, preschoolers, of course, are really learning how to do that. Like that is like their main top priority is like, how do you like communicate how you feel? And
Hmm.
so I would usually be like, hey, oh wow, okay, like I feel there's something happening here, there's a feeling here, okay, like where do you feel that? Oh, I feel that like in my heart, like I feel sad. Oh, okay, like naming the feeling.
Hmm.
It'd be like, okay, well, can you tell me more about what happened? And so like they're able to verbalize, soundboard it a little bit, and then they're processing their feelings first about it. And then it's like, oh, and then I'm like, okay, it seems to me that you feel sad about it being taken away by Jimmy. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah. It's like, well, we have two choices. We could either go into the quiet area over here and read a book and relax and then go speak to Jimmy, or we could just go speak to Jimmy. But you have the power of choice. You are a being of choice. Which do you choose? So they
Hmm.
feel empowered. And they're like,
Yeah, that's
well,
really important to give the kids choice.
right? It's like otherwise it's like go talk to Jimmy now. It's
Hmm.
usually that. It's like, and they're like, uh, they don't even have that sense of empowerment. They still feel bad about it, which means that if they feel bad about it, they're going to go to that child and probably recreate it. So they're probably going to grab it again, and it's going
Right.
to be this thing, slingshot. And
Right.
then it spirals the room because everyone's in like, ah. So, giving them power of choice, which they always are, they go over there and usually there's a sense of like I'm feeling sad, Jimmy, in my heart, and I you took that, and then the child's like, yeah, and then they have a little bit of a discussion, and you let them be a little bit, you don't like hover it, and usually that kind of dissolves a lot, and so it really depends on the child, but it's really empowering them enough to know that they can do it. I
Hmm.
don't care if they're 2 years old or 3 or 1, or they can technically navigate this. I'm just here to give them an opportunity to flower that opportunity. And so it's cool. Of course, I have lots of regulation practices with the kids, and there's like, everything from like stuffies that are weighted to certain specific lights at certain times. I've recorded meditations of my voice, which I cue at certain times, and the whole classroom listens to it. Uh,
Mm.
like there's certain ways to like curate, and that is really definitely poured into how I curate spaces for adults
Hmm.
because we're all that, man.
Right.
Like I get, yeah, cool. You're a CEO. Good for you. You own a business. Nice. But at the end of the day, we're that in the classroom, just done in very articulate, very, detailed adult ways. But it's
Well,
basically,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
I think that what's happening is there's a lot of people that look like adults,
yeah,
but have very wounded inner children
hurry.
that
Yeah.
still want to take that toy back, or
Yep.
that want to prove to Bobby in first grade that they got the bigger car, you know,
Yeah. It shows
and
up very loud sometimes. Yeah.
and
It's
it's
true.
it's like adults
Yeah.
now, the older I get, I'm 38 now. The older I get, the more I realize, you know, it, it doesn't matter how old you are if you haven't addressed those aspects of self. it's gonna come up in your life.
Right
You
on.
know, I've met 67-year olds that still act like they're 13, like it because there's
Yeah,
something that happened in their life
exactly.
in that time that hasn't been fully processed, and they're going in a spiral with it to try to heal it, but there needs to be more tools and more awareness to
Exactly.
that in order to heal it, you know?
If we had
And
more tools, that's how we get to offer that as, aware men, women. If we have the opportunity to know some tools for ourselves, then like given the beautiful right moment, can offer it back. And that's a beautiful thing. So yeah.
yeah, and I mean it's really interesting to watch, like let's say as a kid if you didn't get like certain toys that you wanted, right? Like for Christmas or for your birthday, there's such a I'm noticing in the society now, like people are fully embracing all these aspects, right? Like in some ways, like people are in their 30s, like myself, and like really promoting Pokemon, for example, right? Like they're
Yeah, yeah.
they're they're
Right.
like making tons of money on them and still trading them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I did that. I went through and collected all of them, and then I sold them
Remember you
all,
did. Yeah.
and yeah, and
Totally. Yeah.
made several $1,000s. But it's like, um, just like curiosity with those
Yes.
types of things for me has been really interesting. Like, what is it about receiving that item now that I'm an adult that I couldn't have as a kid, right? Like, is there a memory that comes back with that item, right? Like, is there a part of my childhood that it kind of like drops me into where I need to still look at that or empower myself in that era of my life, or it I believe it may be a little bit different for everyone.
I agree. It's amazing. I'm glad you brought this up because there's been moments where, for instance, like the experience of getting something taken away when you're a child, it happens a lot for many
Hmm.
different reasons. Um, Often from children who are just unconsciously just like it's mine and they're just learning. But
Hmm.
we can take that really personally when we're younger, because imagine like you're deep in imagination land with this item. This item symbolically represents a lot of your subconscious. It represents your feelings of creativity, expression. It gets ripped away. That's actually quite jarring when you're that deep, even though from perspective from just like an adult teacher who's just not thinking of that, they're like, well, it's just like a stuffy or whatever, just a toy. It's not just a toy. It's a representative. It's like a totem. It's something that's it's deep. And I was working with a child about that, and empowered them to a point where they're like, oh, like, look, I don't just have this, I have all of this. And this is all
Mm.
mine right now. And look at this. And so it went from scarcity to abundance mindset immediately. And so he became a leader in the classroom immediately. He was sharing, but to a point, he understood boundaries, but he was like, it was really wicked. And he was like the most like emotional about when things were taken away, to the point now where he's like the most, oh, you're upset? Like, okay, well, let's hang out. Or like, I
Mm.
got you. Like he became that like cool guy who's just like, I'm down.
Hmm.
And it makes me emotional because at the end of the school day, or at the end of the school year, he went up to me. He's like, I'll never forget you. And he was
Wow.
just gave me that huge like little hug. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, wow. Like that boy could have been the most like when he was older, if he didn't go through this like scarcity to abundance at that age, could have been, yeah, we're having a horrible life for many different reasons. But now he's probably going to be just like the most abundant, most stoked guy because his mindset and framework was changed. And because children are so malleable at that age, he was able to flip from scarcity to abundance so quick.
Hmm.
Whereas adults, like we're just so deep in the trenches of our own, patterns over this time that it becomes really calloused and it becomes really hard for us to switch things around. The whole even aspect of like, okay, the finances changing, money mindset, all this stuff is really tricky for most.
Mhm.
So it's really beautiful to know that that young boy is going to become a very empowered man. And it's cool. We have a lot of ability to help, even just a moment with like our niece or nephew, the child across the way who's just like hanging out with their friends or whatever, just like a moment of just like little guidance. All of a sudden they're like, yeah. And then they continue. It shapes their whole life. And so that's why I love doing this. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean I really see you, brother, in that. I think you're such a great role model for these kids, and I mean, I don't know anyone that would be a better fit for working with kids than you, man. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, it really is because you're impacting in this case like these beings that are going to be the future of this
Yeah.
world, you
For
know.
the future of our world right now. And you're doing it too. And being with kiddos and supporting, and we need more healthy, grounded, and men who are doing that. I can't even tell you, like, it's funny how there'd be license officers that would come by and they check in on what you're doing. You have to be up to code and all that stuff. Anyway, so they come by and they'd be like, oh, there's a guy working here. That's cool. And like it was kind of sad, but I was like, yeah, I'm here. Like, and so it's really funny. We gotta switch that up. But as men are becoming more and more trained in their emotional capacity, which
Hmm.
women are so automatic with, but men are really I'm not gonna say behind. We're getting there.
Evolving,
We're
evolving.
evolving, and with that evolving, with our physicality and our expression, our integrity is insanely powerful and shifts everything, right? So, it makes me stoked. I'm seeing more and more. I'm hearing about more and more men being in the field, supporting children, especially, of course, in sports and things like that, is becoming more prevalent. I think it's really important for men to feel like they're a leader in their community for youth in some way. I think that's like a really cool way to know yourself more and feel empowered. I think it's a really great thing, and I'm just really grateful I get to pour that into supporting adults now too. So it's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it goes hand in hand. It really does.
yeah,
It's really interesting because in my field in physical therapy,
yeah.
I work in a clinic where there's speech therapists, there's occupational therapists, and they're supporting staff. And
Mhm.
out of all the staff, there's probably close to 15, 20 rotating staff. I'm the
Okay.
only male.
Wow, really? No
Yeah.
way. Huh.
And
Interesting.
it's really interesting. Yeah,
Wow.
it's been really interesting to observe that and the dynamics and the ways that um, I choose to navigate and also the ways that uh, my presence and things like that,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just been a really different
yeah.
environment because this is my first time being the only male
Yep.
in a workspace. Usually
Glad
there's
you're there.
at least one other, you know, at
Yeah.
least staff, in some way.
You're paving the way, in your own way. There's all these conceptions of, this is just what you do, and men do that, women do that, whatever. It's like our gifts are universal. And so however they want to show up in whatever field, it's going to be beautiful, and just allow it to be that way, without judgment. And you're shaping that environment so much just by being present and being a grounded, you know, healthy force in that space. It's obvious that would rewire for me anyways. It was like being the only male in that sort of career space. It was like I was rewiring women's perspective on men
Mm.
just
Mm.
as a byproduct of being in the space, not even like talking to them very much, just like being that. They were
Hmm.
like, whoa,
Hmm.
that's okay. Cause like, there's misconceptions or there's hurt feelings about men often, and it could happen. And so it's kind of cool to see like being a pattern interrupt to that
Right.
it's cool. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit far out, and
Yeah,
the kids require full presence
I do.
all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And for most people, that's exhausting
Yeah.
because they can't even have presence with themselves, let alone having
Ex-
let alone having
That's
this
why. Yeah, they're like
many,
burnt
many
out.
children to watch for many hours at a time,
No,
And
totally.
it's an amazing practice for me
Mm,
because I get to really like sharpen that and these physical aspects that we talked about earlier, like when I go to the gym
mhm.
and really take care of my body, I can hold that presence way longer,
Or that's the gift. Yeah.
way
This
longer.
secret tool there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not tired by the end of the workday. I'm
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
depleted. I'm able to like fully show up the whole time. And then
Yeah.
also it keeps me from getting sick because a
Yeah.
lot of the times the kids are sick and
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, uh and so I have to make sure my immune system's at the highest level as well. So
Mm,
it's
true.
really there's a lot of layers to it, which is
Yeah.
powerful as well.
It's true. No matter what, I think it's prepared me for a role of fatherhood and stuff like that for sure. Because it's just like I think, in my opinion, to be a good father is to be a very present man, who's like really with you.
Hmm.
And it's really easy in this day and age to check out, through TV, phone, like there's all these career, like there's lots of reasons to be like, I'm checking out. It's too much emotion. But if you actually value feelings as a way to catapult yourself into a greater life, into more depth with the people that you love, which is actually very fulfilling, and gives you more energy, then you're on a good circuit. Like you're running off your own supply, which I think is like superhuman. It's like when I think of Superman, it's like he's running off his own supply. He's not like he doesn't need anything necessarily outside of himself to get his superpower. He has a superpower, but then from there he's also in interaction with the world. And I think that's that superpower awesome father who's just like he's there and he's real, and it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
you're gonna be a great dad. I can't wait for that day, man. That Eddie's got a little one of his own, man. So yeah, I'm super stoked for that day, man.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's been a really huge honor to have you on, brother.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
same. So great to feel you and see you. And yeah, always thinking about you and wishing you the best.
thank
So
you, man. I feel the same towards you and Ella and all of our friends in Vancouver
yeah.
Island. And
Yeah, you gotta come out here. Big
yeah,
time.
dude, I think this summer I'm gonna try to make my way over
Good.
there.
You get free sauna pass, okay? Just
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean that portion of America, like Oregon and Washington, I really want to explore more and go
Cool.
up and visit you guys.
Cool.
And as a side note, we're gonna drop in all the links to all the things that you've been working on.
A lot of cool
Uh,
stuff. Thank you.
and there's so many awesome things that he's working on. He's a man of all trades, and he's such an amazing artist and human. So all that's going to be down below with little descriptions.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those?
Sure, I'll talk about a few things. Just keep it high level here. So basically, I joined this beautiful company just over a year ago, called West Coast Bathhouse, and so I've now become initiated into co-founder, just by
Nice.
sheer dedication and will, to be honest. And so it's been really amazing. I mean, being an entrepreneur, it takes guts. It takes a lot of effort, and it's cool. I have a really good team that have really been in the like executive sphere for a
Mhm.
long time.
Mhm.
So they're both very grounded, practical, and very visionary. And so combining that together has created a lot of fruitful things. And yeah, we've created a lot of impact in the community. Before I actually joined, they still have this 1979 Chevy short bus. It's like this really
Mm,
badass. It's like we painted it jet black and it has cedar
wow.
cladding inside. And so it's a portable sauna bus. And so it's
Whoa.
super cool, dude. It's unreal. And so you can take it to festivals and it's a thing. And
That's
so
far
we're
out.
we're redesigning that. I'm learning some carpentry skills and getting all into designing saunas. And then we've got all these assets and we're deploying them as we speak. And we've got this like beautiful Sunday social experience coming soon with a bunch of yoga instructors and beautiful facilitators in this gorgeous marina. So we collaborated with this international marina network, and we're going to start doing all these events there because they have the space.
Wow.
It's right on the ocean. It's really beautiful.
Whoa, that's
Um,
amazing.
so all that stuff is popping. And I also started a YouTube channel with my beloved partner Ella, and it's called Prism Bloom. And the reason why is because, like a prism, we have many different reflections and refractions of ourselves and of our expression.
Mm.
And when we're able to meet those places with authenticity and realness and truth, we begin to bloom. So Prism Bloom. And so we're doing weekly, just like right after this, we're actually going to record one. So, um,
Nice.
unscripted, super raw, super honest conversations about romantic relationships.
Mm.
And Elle and
Beautiful.
I go into some personal stories to a degree, and like we just like really relate. And it's only been like a week and a half, and people are already like, this is so refreshing. Like it's so nice to hear some truth and it's unedited. It's true, and I think that that's kind of a missing piece in our super altered, really, really edited, hyper flashy world. We're just
Hmm.
done with it. We're done. Or it's exhausting. We just want to have the honesty. So yeah, so check it out, Prism Bloom on YouTube, and it's starting up. And then we're also once a month going to get the best juicy nuggets of those conversations and then add music to it and make it a cinematic album so that
Oh,
people
cool.
like sit back and receive it with music and expression, kind of like Alan Watts with lo-fi beats, like that
Oh,
vibe.
nice. I
And
love
yeah,
that.
make it kind of a unique experience, not just us sitting there, but like something more. So
Cool. Cool. And then you have a book,
I do.
best-selling
So yeah,
book.
it was multi-authored, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. It's called Children of the New Earth, and basically, wonderfully, perfectly aligned with this podcast is that I discuss about my journey as a child, growing up, navigating a lot of what I mentioned on the podcast, keeping my light, keeping my intention, growing that into something really beautiful and fruitful for the community, and also just poetically writing about these children, like
Mm.
having such a close interaction with such a variety of children, but the core of it being, our human species is expanding their conscious so much. And so I just wrote about that and what these children are like and what these moments are. There's a few really breathtaking passages of experiences I've had with children that are like time stopping that I wrote in my
Wow.
journal and then I put into the book. So
Nice.
I'm sure you guys will love it. It's really beautiful. It's really honoring to these children coming in and deep bows. So it's good to have it out. And it became a best-selling book in like, I don't know, like less than a week. It was just super
Wow.
fast.
Amazing. Of
Yeah.
course it did. Of course it did.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. We'll
Yeah.
drop
Fine.
all these links underneath in the
Sounds good.
YouTube and in the podcast as well.
Cool.
And we'll see you soon, brother. Thank you again. Sending
Love
you
you,
so
man.
much love. All
Cheers,
right.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye.